Good evening, and welcome to the District 67 debate. I am Johnny Jones, Director of Live Stream Sales for Mad Game Entertainment. We are thankful to our community partners, Goodman Page, Next Generation Pioneers, for sponsoring this event. It is our hope tonight's debate contributes to an informed citizenry. We appreciate each candidate taking time from their schedules to participate. It is our strong belief that debates are the essence of how public chooses their leaders. With that being said, I now turn this over to our moderator, Ms. Destiny Beasley.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Good evening, audience. I am Destiny Beasley. I'm an anchor reporter at WBRZ, and tonight we have our debate for the candidates that are vying for District 67 right here in Baton Rouge. So welcome. We have Mr. Sonny Marchbanks, then we have Mr. Terry Landry, and we also have Mr. Malcolm Myers. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Good to be here. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, we will start with our opening statements. So each of you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds. So we're going to start on your end, Mr. Myers, and we're going to work all the way down to Mr. Marchbanks. Okay, Mr. Myers.
Thank you. First, good evening, and I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. I want to thank all of the sponsors for contributing to this and making this a wonderful debate, for the citizens of District 67 and for them to have the opportunity to learn from the candidates that are running. My name is Malcolm Meyer. I'm very pleased to be running for District 67. I've lived and worked in District 67 for 35 plus years. Been married for 30 years to Renee Butte Meyer. We have one daughter, Madeline Elizabeth. My background, of course, of working in state government, both as in the Louisiana House of Representatives as an assistant to the clerk, as well as Departments of Social Services, now DCFS, DHH, now LDH, going on to serve as the state director for U.S. Senator John Breaux, moving on over to the Department of Justice, and as well as the Agriculture Commissioner as the assistant commissioner under Commissioner Bob Odom. So my experience and depth and knowledge in state government, I think, gives me the opportunity to be the best candidate. I've also worked in the private sector, doing consulting work in government relations, some lobbying, so some business development. So I've appreciated the opportunity to represent municipalities as well as other entities along the way. So it's been quite interesting. I want to serve because I've also given back to this community. My wife and I have been foster parents. Yeah. So thank you. So welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Landry.
Good evening. Thank you all again for putting this on. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Terry Landry Jr., and for the past 16 years, since 2009, I have worked legitimately in the Capitol on a consistent basis, whether it be from special sessions to regular sessions to these, extraordinary sessions dealing with redistricting. And so I am an attorney. I'm an LSU graduate, also a Southern University Law Center graduate, and I also have a master's in public administration from Southern University. I am married to the beautiful Valencia Vessel Landry, and we have 3 wonderful children, Kirsten, who is 19 and at Spelman, and then Langston is 11 and at Basis Mid-City. Brennan is 9 at Basis Mid-City. And so we are committed. I come from a long line of public servants. Like I said, I got my start with Acadian Ambulance in 2009 and doing their legislative affairs. In law school, I worked for the Department of Insurance. I worked for the Department of Health doing Medicaid fraud. I worked with DCFS as a legislative liaison, and now as the state policy director for a civil rights and social justice organization. So all of those years in the Capitol, building those relationships is why I believe I'm the best candidate for this position.
All right. Well, Mr. Marchbanks.
Good evening. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me. My name's Sonny Marchbanks, and I'm running for the District 67 House seat because I don't feel that politics is paying attention to working class people any longer. I grew up working class. My father worked in the oil field. My mother was a waitress. I worked in the oil field. I worked as a server and a bartender for years, working my way through Southeastern University, where I got my degree in political science, and I came to LSU for my graduate degree in political science. I worked in a law office here in Baton Rouge, and now I work in construction management, project management. I work every day, and I have worked every day of my grown life. And I see the members of the community working hard every day, and government is not doing enough to address their needs. That's why I'm running for this seat, and I ask for your vote.
All right. Well, thank you all for those opening statements. I want to get this going along. So the first topic is basic knowledge. All right. So we're going to start off with you, Mr. Marchbanks. We're going to work our way down to you, Mr. Meyer.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Marchbanks, what is the role of a state representative in Louisiana?
So my political science professor maybe wants to come out. So the legislature is divided into two chambers, the Senate and the House. They're co-equal parts of the legislative branch. Each legislator has a vote in the House of Representatives, and they represent a district that is defined by law. We draw new maps every 10 years based on the census. We just did that. And that is subject to a lawsuit right now. So my job as a legislator would be bringing the voices of the people of the district to the legislature and ensuring that people who are not heard are heard in that chamber.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Marchbanks. All right. So, Mr. Landry, can you explain how a bill becomes law in Louisiana?
Yes. So what happens is you usually have, it can happen in a multitude of ways, right? The way we experience it, or I experience it firsthand, is usually as a policy director, I will come up with an idea or some sort of need that I feel like is necessary. Then I go to an author or a representative, which in this case, if elected, that would be myself. And so as the author of a bill, I then have to file it or do a pre-filing, request a pre-filing with the staff. And then there's a deadline for that. And then that bill is then filed. Once the bill is filed, it is then assigned, the clerk assigns it to a particular committee, whether it's criminal justice, education, governmental affairs. And then once that committee hearing happens or is scheduled, I would be responsible for introducing the legislation before the committee. The committee would then vote on that particular piece of legislation. If it passes, then that particular legislation then goes to the House floor for a debate. Once that is scheduled, the floor debate happens, and then it goes to the Senate side for the same process, right? So if the Senate passes out of committee, it goes to the Senate floor, they have the discussion, it passes, and then it's up to the governor to sign it or not sign it. If he doesn't sign it after so many days, it automatically becomes law. If he signs it, it does become law. And then there's some veto processes that can happen as well. But that's the process in a nutshell.
All right, thank you. All right, so Mr. Myers, how many members does the Louisiana House of Representatives have?
105 in the House and 39 in the Senate.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
For a total of 144.
Well, you can do math too.
All right.
As well as politics.
All right, thank you.
I was told there would be no math
All right,
involved.
thank you. We're gonna thank you for the humor. Enjoyed that. We're gonna go back to this. All right, so Mr. Marchbank, what day and time does the regular session begin this year?
Well, session started Monday.
What day?
That was the 15th at noon.
Close. Sorry, but it was April 14th. Thank you for your answer, though. All right. All right. So, Mr. Landry,
Yes.
what day and time does the regular session end this year?
June 12th at 6 p.m.
All right. Thank you for the answer. That was correct. So, Mr. Meyer, What are the basic functions of the Louisiana House of Representatives?
The basic functions are to have legislation introduced and provide that information on behalf of the citizens of Louisiana to move laws forward to progress for the progress of Louisiana citizens. The legislature on a total actually appropriates funds for municipalities as well as the state of Louisiana, and actually works well with the federal government to make sure that we have funding coming down from the federal government. Louisiana, unfortunately, is a debtor state. We receive more money from the federal government than we send up there. But states like California and other larger states in New York send up more money. So we have Medicaid programs that need funding. We have food stamp programs, or SNAP, or it used to be food stamps. I guess I'm telling my age a little bit. Mm-hmm. But SNAP program, it has federal funding. So like I said, we're a debtor state. So the function is to make sure that the citizens of the state of Louisiana are provided with the services they need.
All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Marchbanks, how many members in the House are Democrats and how many are Republicans?
So I think there's 35 Democrats.
And Republicans?
The rest. I was told there would be no math involved.
Well, thank you for your answer. You were close. 32 Democrats and 73 Republicans. So you were close. All right.
He said the rest.
All right.
That works, right?
All right. Well, thank you all for answering that series. We're going to move on to relationships between state and local government. So we're going to start off with you, Mr. Landry, then we're going to go to Mr. Myers, and then Mr. Marchbanks. Okay. So this question, it will be for all three candidates, starting with Mr. Landry, Mr. Myers, Mr. Marchbanks. Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Landry, how would you support Baton Rouge city officials in addressing crime, blight, and infrastructure issues?
Well, that's a great question. I was actually at a forum earlier today where some of this information was discussed, and former Chief Murphy Paul and Attorney Thompson mentioned that blight and homicide have a direct correlation. I think LSU did a study that showed that where there's blight, homicides are likely to rise, right? And so obviously with blight, there's an eminent domain issue that we can have here in the city. And so it would be, as a state representative, to ensure that funding is there, to ensure that there's guidance to the city council, to ensure that the proper laws are followed, and that eminent domain can assist, and hopefully we get rid of the blight, then that also assists with the homicides and crime in the city.
All right, thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Meyer.
Well, I agree that we have eminent domain and we have activity that we need to take that needs to take place to get those blighted properties taken care of. Coupled with that, I can't say that I disagree with the answer, but coupled with that, we also look at the crime and the criminal element that's associated with blighted property, as well as the fact that our insurance rates go up because a lot of times you see those blighted properties go up in flames, and also causes homes next door to them to go up in flames. So the criminal element is a problem also. I actually had an impromptu meeting, just eating lunch while I was out campaigning, and saw the present mayor Edwards, and it's one of the things we talked about in discussion. Also, talking to the former chief, about crime and the criminal element that we have in District 67, which now used to be second district, is now comprised of both second and first and second district, as I recall. So we've got to get more of a community-based policing in place to make sure that we look at reducing blight as well as eminent domain.
All right, thank you. Mr. Marchbanks, do you need me to reiterate the question, or?
Oh, go for it.
All right.
Please, ma'am.
All right, so how would you support Baton Rouge city officials in addressing crime, blight, and infrastructure issues?
So I think there's several ways that the state can partner with the city, and the state has a vested interest in partnering with the city, being the capital of Louisiana. We want this to be a showplace, not have the issues that it has. We can partner with the city on crime and blight. The state can provide the funds, some of the funds to do some of the eminent domain stuff. I also have concerns with some of the eminent domain because I don't want to take away some old lady's house because she can't pay the property taxes. So I feel like that is something that we should be very careful about in exercising that power of the state against poor people.
All right. So, Mr. Landry, when state and local interests clash, where do you stand?
I'm sorry, I said it again.
When state and local interests clash, where do you stand?
I stand with my constituents. I think as a state representative, we are truly their representative. So if they have to learn how to work together. Usually we can find some type of common ground, and that's what I'm about. I think you have to be able to listen to both sides, and that we're not going to always agree. So there are going to be times where those issues clash, but I think that as a representative, as the representative, it is the voice of the constituents that matter, and then I have to do my best to represent them.
All right, thank you. Mr. Meyer, how do you plan to work with East Baton Rouge Parish School Board to improve educational outcomes in District 67?
Well, the first thing you have to do is build a coalition, and I think my jobs and my experience and the elected officials that I've worked for have all been coalition builders. I've had the opportunity to see them work with both sides of the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats. I've had the opportunity to be appointed and work for both Republicans and Democrats throughout my career, and I think I need to work directly with the school board to look at particular funding, to look at whether our schools that are failing, where parents ought to have an opportunity to have their child go to a good school. I use this analogy all the time. If you walked into a doctor's office and the ceiling tiles were brown and you had to step over slime when the gutters were, having water gushing down the sides, would you feel comfortable going to that doctor's office? The answer to that is no. And I think that's the way our kids feel too. They walk in some of these classrooms and ceiling tiles are falling down, paint's chipped up, and so they've been neglected over the years. Maintenance hadn't been provided, so they need funding for maintenance. They also need funding for teachers. My mother taught school for 38 years. For 38 years she's taught, and she's here tonight. I'm glad to see that she's here.
Thank you. To go back to the question, what will you do as far as the plan?
My plan is to give them adequate funding, is to make sure that they have the proper resources to be able to move forward, that they work with the Department of Education if it's still in existence, because the federal government has disbanded the federal Department of Education, and so if they are still in existence, to make sure that they have the proper funding to do their job. Also to make sure that teachers or have accountability on all levels, whether it be charter schools, public schools, or any others. You can't require a child to be in the 8th grade to go to a LEAP test and say in the public schools you have to take the LEAP test, but in other schools you don't. That's unfair. So we have to have accountability across all boards, and we have to pay our teachers fairly, because you know why? Teachers teach the teachers teach the doctors, teach the lawyers, they teach everybody. And they're at the bottom rung of the pay scale. They need to be paid properly.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. I appreciate that. All right, Mr. Marchbanks. What should the state's role be in addressing the ongoing housing and zoning challenges in Baton Rouge?
Well, so zoning is typically, that is a local issue. The state should have minimal effect on zoning issues. We have the system set up for a reason. We don't want the state stepping in and interfering with parish zoning issues.
Mr. Landry, the state legislature has a hand in bidding on building contracts, and how would you, as a state representative, help facilitate these bids to ensure Black minority-owned companies get a fair shot at securing state and city contracts?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is, and I know we have improved, is ensuring that our minority-owned businesses are registered as DBEs. I think that's the first step. I think then as that, we have to make them aware. We need to build some type of statewide database so that everyone is aware of what the DBs are, what the expertise is, and so make that known to the public as well. And so just to facilitate that, again, going to my constituents, ensuring that they're registered, ensuring that they have the proper filings to be qualified as a DBE, and ensuring that they have a fair shot at these contracts. Obviously, we can't play favorites, right? And we want to make sure that we're doing everything that's fair and equitable, but we have to give knowledge first and educate the public and these contractors on how to get these contracts, the proper filings, and then make that known to the powers that be.
All right, thank you all. So that was the wrap of the relationship between state
Can
and
I
local.
chime in on that?
Oh yes, you have
Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. I am DBE. I am registered, and there is a database that exists already. It is run by different agencies, whether it be the Unified System over at DOTD or the airport down in New Orleans. I've been registered as a DBE provider. The issue and the problem is that DBE providers may get chosen, but they don't get paid fairly along the way all the time. And so when you get a DBE provider that has a contract and a prime contractor doesn't pay him timely, it's hard for those DBE providers to continue on doing their services.
Right.
So that's a problem.
All right, thank you.
This is actually a big problem.
Okay, you have 30 seconds as well.
I work for a DBE, and I don't want to get into
Payment and non-payment?
right, but we just had an issue with the state, and it's not right.
That's right. It's not.
I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move on to relationships between state and federal government. And so, Mr. Meyer, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go to Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Landry. All right. So, Mr. Meyer, how will you ensure District 67 receives its fair share of federal funding for roads, housing, and education?
Well, as I stated to you earlier, Louisiana is a debtor state, so we receive more money from the federal government than we send up there. So we need to continue to make sure that we memorialize Congress asking for those things along the way, whether it be funding for roads. You know, we need to have funding for job-ready programs, you know, shovel-ready as they call them. Louisiana's been trying to get Baton Rouge's been trying to get a bridge for quite some time, or something, you know, further south of there, maybe towards Plaquemine. We need to widen I-10, which is they're working on. But I have a plan, and I've talked about this before. You need to elevate Airline Highway to interstate grade speed and put service roads on the side. Those highways were built that way with servitude for that reason, so you can expand the roads, so you can have that servitude and that expressway. Then you turn around, you have to have traffic move through Baton Rouge, through the bump process, which will start back towards coming out of Iberville Parish. You also have to look at widening. You can't do any of this. You can have a bridge. You can't do anything without widening Highway 30. If you don't have it down up to 4 lanes, you put it down to two lanes, you're just pouring stuff back into a funnel that's bad.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Thank you.
Mr. Marchbanks, what is your stance on Medicaid expansion, and how would you advocate for or against changes to healthcare access in this district?
So I think the Governor Edwards' expansion of Medicaid was incredible for this state. It ensured that our rural hospitals didn't close, and it kept the system afloat. I'm very concerned about the cuts that the federal government are considering, which right now they're saying already it could be $10 million this year, which I was looking at the governor's budget earlier, and it's basically the same on health year to year. But if we take that $10 million hit, we're all of a sudden going to not have the money that we needed for healthcare in this state. And we really need to think seriously about what we're going to do to make sure that people have access to quality healthcare in this state, because it is highly at risk.
Mm-hmm. So, Mr. Landry, how should the state work with federal agencies to address the environmental and flooding issues affecting parts of Baton Rouge?
Well, I think that first it's about relationships, right? So I am confident, and as a state representative, that Senator Bill Cassidy has a hand in the environmental federal committee, and so he would be the first stop. I have a personal relationship with him, and not only him, but Congressman Fields and Congressman Carter as well. And so building those relationships and going and saying, hey, these are our needs, these are what our communities are suffering with as far as environmental rights. That's the start. And so when you build that coalition, you build that team and build that relationship, it's easier to start having those conversations and not having the downtime where you can call them directly and say, hey, listen, I need to talk to you about these are my issues and how can we get funding to eradicate some of those issues.
All right, thank you.
And may I add that I think it's fair to say that we probably
30
all
seconds.
have some relationships with our congressmen and our U.S. senators, and that way we'll continue to work. I've had the pleasure of working with all of them statewide.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Meyer.
Okay.
All right, in the event of federal overreach, where do you draw the line, and how will you protect local interests?
When you say federal overreach, be a little more specific. In what category, what area?
Just overall federal overreach in anything that you're dealing with.
Well, I think that the states run things good. I think that states would legislate, as a state representative, that I will make sure that we're managing that process properly. I think that the federal government shouldn't be stepping into the state and telling us what to do. I think that you will see that it's pretty evident that it's been that way in the past. And so, but there are times when they do have certain mandates that they go along with it, whether it be managed care or food stamp or welfare reform. Those federal government stepped in, you had those criteria that had to be met. And so sometimes you're going to have that. But if you go exceedingly too harsh, we've got to be able to push back and work with our congressional delegation as well as others in the state to make sure that they don't overreach.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to move forward to our next topic, committee knowledge. Starting with you, Mr. Marchbanks. Then we're going to go to Mr. Landry, Mr. Meyer.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Marchbanks, how many committees can members of the House serve on at a time?
I want to say 5, but I have not been working at the Capitol for 20 years. I've been working at a job every day that
No, it's fine.
does not allow me to
All right.
brush up on my.
It's fine. I'll give you the answer. It's 3. You're
Okay.
close. You're a little off, but it's fine. All right. Thank you for your answer, though. I appreciate it. All right, Mr. Landry. What is a joint committee and what is the purpose of joint committees?
So there's a joint committee on budget, and so the joint committee is meaning that is a committee comprised of both House and Senate members, and it is a way to have a cohesive agreement between the both committees. And so they'll be so for budget they have to agree on an entire budget for the state, and so that joint committee will meet and solidify the budget.
All right, thank you. So this will be a question for all 3 candidates, starting with you, Mr. Myers, and then we're going to work our way on down. All right. So, Mr. Meyer, which House committees are most important to the issues facing District 67 and why?
Well, first let me start off by saying there's 17 committees in the Senate and 16 in the House. They joined the Environmental Committee and Natural Resources Committee back in 2008. And so you have 16 in the House and 17 in the Senate. You have the Appropriations Committee and the Finance Committee, which are the most important ones that will represent District 67 well. Also, health and welfare, education, I think that, and judiciary, because I think we have to deal with those areas, are very important. But the first thing we need to do is make sure that we get the proper funding for this district, whether it be for small businesses, whether it be for housing, blight, all of those things. And it starts with the Appropriations Committee, because that's who appropriates money and finance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Marchbanks, same question. Which House committees are most important to the issues facing District 67 and why?
So, health would have to be up there. Transportation is essential. We have a serious transportation problem in this town. And we have too many working people who spend too much time trying to get from one place to the other, and they can't get there. I have ridden the bus to work. I know how hard it is to get around this town. From Brightside to downtown takes over an hour on the city bus, and you can walk there that fast. This is an essential issue to quality of life in this city. I also want to say if there's ever a trivia night in Baton Rouge that is about legislative nuance, I found my team.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your answer. All right. So, Mr. Landry, well, this next question will also be for all 3 candidates, but going back to you, Mr. Landry.
Did I get an opportunity to answer that question or no?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Moving too fast, moving ahead of
It's all right,
myself.
it's all right.
All right. So for you, same question. Which House committees are most important to the issues facing District 67 and why?
I believe that whatever House committee meeting that day, that's important to the district. So like on Wednesday, when House Bill 445 was trying to open up juvenile records and not conceal them, that particular issue was important to this district. Just like on next week, when they're going to talk about having 15-year-olds charged as adults, that particular issue at that particular time in that particular committee will be of issue. And so I have testified in a numerous amount of the committees. I don't want to say all of them, but a majority of them over the past few years. And so at that particular day, at that particular time, each issue is important to this district. So that particular committee is of importance.
All right. Thank you. All right. So, Mr. Meyer, and this question will be for all 3. If elected, which committees would you seek to serve on, and how would that help our community?
Well, as I stated earlier, I'd like to serve on appropriations, but they have a mandate that it's only 25 members per committee. The other committees have up to 18. members that can serve on it. So health and welfare, I think, is very important because we tend to be in a healthcare desert. Education, because I think it's very important, as you stated earlier, to make sure that we have educational components in working with the schools as well as teachers and teacher pay. Make sure that those things are met. And so I'll make sure that I serve on. That's where the three major ones that I would start off with at first.
All right, thank you. Mr. Marchbanks, if elected, which committees would you seek to serve on, and how would that help our community?
Health and welfare, education, and transportation. These are the three committees that are most essential, not just to the district, but to working people in general. In the district, in the state, and it would give me a great perch to work on policy that makes life better for everybody who gets up and goes to work every morning.
Thank you. I didn't forget about you. All right, if elected, which committees would you seek to serve on, and how would they help our community?
Okay, so first of all, it would be education, because as I've stated in my campaign, that the first thing I want to do is to fully fund early childhood education, and why not start an education committee? Second would be criminal justice, because as I've also said, in the criminal justice committee, our children are under attack, and when our children are under attack, that means our future is under attack. And then last would be House and Governmental Affairs, simply because of the voting rights, the restrictions that are being attempted to be made, and we want to be expansive, not restrictive.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so Mr. Meyer, this question is for you. How do House
You
committees?
start with me all the time. That's good. I like that. All right.
Well, you're on the end. How do House committees shape policy, and what experience do you bring to make an impact in that setting?
Can I have the question again, please?
How do House committees shape policy, and what experience do you bring to make an impact in that setting?
Well, one, like I told you before, I worked in the Louisiana House of Representatives as an assistant to the clerk, and so all the committee reports came to me. Second, I've also been a legislative liaison and special assistant and confidential assistant along the way, testified in front of committees, and in my lobbying work and consulting work, I've testified in front of committees. So the committee report is probably one of the most important, parts of the legislative process, because that's when a lot of the work gets done and everything gets ironed out before it goes to the floor. A lot of people respect the committee's work, and so if those committees are working hard, that's when people will make sure that they take a look at their services and what they've done.
Thank you. Mr. Marchbanks, can you name a recent decision?
Oh, we're not doing the same question?
Oh, no. No, that was just for those two questions. Mr. Marchbanks, can you name a recent decision made in a House committee that directly affected Baton Rouge residents?
Well, the House just met, so recent.
Well, you can go off of the last year's session if you would like to.
Well, I mean, they put several constitutional amendments on the ballot that had a direct effect on Baton Rouge that we recently rejected.
Would you care to explain?
How those constitutional amendments affected the parish?
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel as well versed as my opponents here on this subject. I got intimidated by them all of a sudden.
Please don't do that. We don't bite.
If that's all that you have to say, that's fine. So we're going to go on to signature legislation. All right, Mr. Landry, we're not going to start with you this time. We're going to start with Mr. Landry.
Gotcha.
And we're going to go to Mr. Marchbanks, and this time you're going to be last.
Okay.
As they say, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. Okay. So, Mr. Landry, and this question is for all three. What specific legislation would you file in your first year to directly benefit District 67?
The first piece of legislation, as I mentioned, would be to fully fund early childhood education. I believe that the sooner we get our children in the classrooms, the earlier we get our children in the classrooms, is a gateway to a better economy, to a stronger city, to stronger families. And so that piece of legislation I intend to introduce every single time until it is passed fully.
All right, thank you. Mr. Marchbanks, What specific legislation would you file in your first year to directly benefit District 67?
So my top priority is universal pre-K. I believe that education is an investment in our future. Universal pre-K is a bill that I will run until it passes. We have so many studies that show that the younger a child's education begins, the greater their educational outcomes are. Therefore, it is an investment in our economy, in our public safety, and in our people. And that will be my top priority.
Thank you so much. Mr. Meyer?
Well, coupled with those two is they're easy pieces of legislation to introduce. Early childhood as well as universal pre-K. But also I will make sure that I introduce a bill every year to increase teacher pay to what they deserve. Not just the Southern Regional average, because they've been lagging behind for far too long. I lived in the house of a teacher. I witnessed it every day. I witnessed the amount of work that goes into giving back to the community, and I'm happy and proud to say that she instilled that in me, and I continue to do that every day. So those programs, but teacher pay. Teachers need to be paid a fair wage for the amount of work that they do. Not only are they teaching, but they got to be the counselor. They got to make sure that they're fed. They got to make sure that they're the disciplinarian, and then turn around and the teacher tells the child something. They turn around and they come back and say, well, my child didn't do that. Well, that's unfair to those teachers, because they're doing this and they're working really hard to do those things, and I think it's really unfair that they aren't paid a better wage.
Thank you so much.
Every year I'll do it.
Thank you. All right. So this is another question for all three candidates. Mr. Landry, Mr. Marshman, Mr. Myers.
Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Landry, can you name one existing law you believe should be repealed or amended, and why?
Oh, one. There are many. I will start with the 25-foot rule that was just passed in 2024 under the in the crime section, which disallows or not allow an individual to be within 25 feet of a police officer. We have found that is unconstitutional, and it's hard to manage. It's hard to govern, right? How do I know if I'm 24 feet away? How do I know if I'm 26 feet? How does the officer know? He's not carrying a tape measure in his pocket, right? And so it also prevents the public from having that transparency with police officers to say if they do want to record, if they do feel like an injustice is occurring. And so I think that law should be repealed.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Marchbanks, can you name one existing law you believe should be repealed or amended, and why?
Concealed carry. Licensed concealed carry, I'm fine with. Somebody has to go through a lot of trouble for that. There's some anecdotal stories from police departments that they've seen an uptick of crime. I think a lot of people have gotten this idea that anybody can just put a pistol in their pocket, and there have been some bad situations in this state. Sheriffs oppose it. Police departments oppose it. We should absolutely repeal that law.
Thank you so much. Mr. Meyer, can you name one existing law you believe should be repealed or amended, and why?
The jury threshold bill. It requires a person to determine that they want a jury or judge 45 days prior to the court date. And it was sold as a way to make sure that prosecutors didn't wait until the last minute and people just bailed out. But what it's done is caused an undue burden on the person who actually is going to trial. So I think that ought to be repealed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Landry, this question will be for you. Okay. How will you ensure your bills gain bipartisan support and make it out of committee?
Well, we've had to do this through our work in the legislature as an advocate, as a representative of different state agencies and organizations. And so the first thing we have to do, we have to meet with all parties. Who's ever on that committee, we have to hear both sides, listen to both sides, and try to find that common ground. I often think that we have more in common than that separates us. And so we want to build on those relationships in the current legislature. Because I've been there currently and consistently over 16 years, I know the majority, if not all of, I don't want to say all the legislators, but the majority of legislators, and be able to build upon those relationships to say, hey, where can we meet in the middle that is best for your constituents, that's best for my constituents, and get this bill passed.
All right, thank you so much. All right. Mr. Marchbanks, this question will be for you. What legislation?
Not the same thing. We're not going to. You're not going to ask that same question to everybody?
Oh, no, that was for one person.
Okay.
Would you like to
Could
ask?
you repeat the question? Yes.
How will you ensure your bills gain bipartisan support and make it out of committee?
As I stated before, I've been a coalition builder, and I think that building coalitions are important to this process. I think that you'll be able to see and be reflected in the number of endorsements that I've received from both business, from labor and from business, as well as industry. And you'll be able to see those things that, excuse me?
No.
You'll be able to see that I'm able to be a coalition builder, and you've got to be able to talk to all of those parties involved to make sure that you can get legislation through the process.
All right, thank you. And since I
Thank
did the
you.
question for you as well, I'm going to do the same one for you. So we can be fair to all candidates. All right, so Mr. Marchbanks, how will you ensure your bills gain bipartisan support and make it out of committee?
So the most important thing will be able to meet with other legislators and explain to them how, because this is laws passed through the legislature affect the whole state. So it'll be important to meet with my fellow legislators and explain to them how this bill makes life better for their constituents and how many of those constituents there are. And that'll be one of my key things I do is build relationships and talk and go in with numbers.
All right. We'll take a 60-second break so y'all can, recalibrate.
They don't do that on.
All right, welcome back. Thank you all. All right, so we have one more question underneath signature legislation. And this question will be for all three candidates. All right, so same order. Mr. Landry, Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Myers, since you mentioned going first the last time, I'm going to have you go last again. But it's okay, you're going to be first again.
We're okay. I understand. Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Landry, what are the top 3 challenges facing residents of District 67, and what is your plan to address them?
Well, in being the campaign trail, the 3 things that I've noticed that has come up the most is blight, crime, and then also like drainage and sewage. So I think that the most important thing to do is work with our city council persons, whether it's City Councilwoman Carolyn Coleman or City Councilwoman Tawana Harris, or whomever is in that area, but primarily the districts that we've seen and that we've talked to, have been with also City Councilman Rowdy Goday. So we would work with them and try to get funding to address those issues, but also going into the community because we're hearing like, hey, I've called the city out. And then folks don't know sometimes that you can call your city council person directly or to their office and try to get them to also come out and persist. So we want to be able to build those relationships and unite those people together and then work collectively to ensure that those issues are addressed. So that would be blight, crime, and then drainage and sewage.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Marchbanks, same question. What are the top 3 challenges facing residents of District 67, and what is your plan to address them?
So crime, transportation, and one that I broadly call the environment. I think it addresses some of Terry's drainage issues, but we also have a Superfund site in the district that has been there for years. And how we can have the capital of Louisiana right next to a Superfund site and do nothing about it baffles me. And it speaks to the larger community that is also blighty, dirty, and full of toxins. This is a beautiful place, and we should be doing more to address that environment. Crime, a big issue in this area, and I think transportation is huge in this district. The roads are abhorrent. You have to get your alignment chain fixed once a year. You got to get a blowout on a regular basis. Or using public transportation, it takes hours to get to work and get home.
Thank
And that's
you.
not right.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Meyer. What are the top 3 challenges facing residents of District 67, and what is your plan to address them?
As I've gone around and talked to people, the number 1 issue that everyone talks about is crime. Crime is a criminal element on the rise. People are really concerned about it. Economic development. If we want to lift up District 67, small businesses are the backbone to the success of District 67. So we got small businesses that people that are just single persons, those that are 25 and less, those are 25 to 50. I mean, we got to be able to have those businesses thrive in this area so we can lift everybody else up. As well as our blight problem. I know we've talked about it over and over again, but our blight problem is really, really bad here. And so the way I address it is making sure we have the proper funding, make sure I build a coalition, make sure I look at the experiences that I had on both the federal government. I talked about this earlier, but as state director for U.S. Senator John Breaux in the past, I've been able to build relationships on the federal level also to make sure we have proper funding coming down. So I want to continue to do those things and make sure that District 67 is represented well.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and we're going to move on to personal and professional experience. But right before we get to that, I want to remind the audience that you can leave online questions as well for all 3 candidates. All right, so moving on. So this is a question for all 3 candidates, starting with Mr. Meyer, and then we're going to Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Landry. All right. So what in your personal or professional life best prepares you to represent this district?
I've talked about it over and over again. My experience down at the Capitol, my legislative experience of not only just drafting legislation, but drafting amendments and working on committees and committee reports, doing all those activities. Working in state agencies as well as working for U.S. Senator John Breaux has given me a broader knowledge, everything from A to Z, and dealing with these issues. As Assistant Commissioner of Agriculture, working on emergency preparedness and dealing with those entities and being responsible for food and fuel, especially after Katrina. I saw it firsthand, lived in New Orleans right at the day after Katrina for quite some time, as well as Lake Charles hit with Rita right afterwards. So hurricanes and dealing with emergency preparedness is very important. So I'm gonna take all that experience and bring it to this district and be the representative that represents all the people. And like was stated earlier, it's not only just this district, but what happens in District 67 has an effect on all of the state. So we need to be cognizant of the things that we're working on.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Marchbanks. What in your personal or professional life best prepares you to represent this district?
So, my dad worked in the oil field. My mother was a waitress. I grew up working class, like most of the district. Since I was 14, I've worked most every day of my life, worked in the oil field, worked as a waiter, worked in a law office, and now I work in project management and construction. So, which gives me a unique skill set in problem solving. So, every day I walk into the House of Representatives, every bill I look at, I will be looking at it through a lens of how does this affect working people, and I will be using my problem solving skills to find the most efficient solution to make life better for working people in this city and in this state.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Landry, what in your personal or professional life best prepares you to represent this district?
I think first, as an attorney, we know that, I know that bills can be difficult to read. They're not put in layman's terms. A lot of them have a lot of legalese that are difficult to break down. So that's first. Then I think my master's in public administration, which deals with government, how a government is run, also helps me. And then on-the-job training. I mean, what better place? I've been in the building for the past 16 years. I have receipts of me testifying as late as 2024 when we're talking about 17-year-olds being treated as adults in the criminal justice system. And then also, if you look at my endorsements, I think I have about 80 to 90% of the entire Black Caucus that has endorsed my campaign, as well as local city council persons, school board members as well. So I think that coalition of people that are looking to me to say, hey, we know what we need, we want you to come and join us because of what you have done over the past 16 years, is the experience that makes me the best person for this job.
All right, thank you so much. This question will be for all three candidates, starting with Mr. Meyer, Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Landry. All right. So, Mr. Meyer, how have you worked with people of opposing views to get things done, and how would you continue that in office?
Well, when you have somebody that has an opposing view, you have to understand that just because it's that person's idea doesn't make it a bad idea. So you need to, if they're opposing your idea, you need to go to them and present your facts, step by step, and try to convince them as to why it's a better idea. You have to understand that the politics is the art of negotiation. They've lost it in D.C. They don't negotiate. They just sit on one side and talk about why the other guy is a bad idea and why they don't want to pass anything. And they do it, and they sit across the aisles from each other doing that. I want to make sure that I'm able to build that coalition, be able to talk to people and say that I understand your concerns, but we need to work through this, and here are the reasons why I think that my idea is the best way to approach this. Now, that goes along with proper funding, like I talked about. It goes along with making sure that people are educated on the issues, and that's what I'll work hard to do for the people of District 67.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Marchbanks, how have you worked with people of opposing views to get things done, and how would you continue that in office?
So I think it's important when we do have different ideas, and this happens in construction sometimes, different views on how to approach a thing. We have to talk about what we're actually talking about. And I think in a lot of politics these days, things get boiled down to liberal and conservative. But fact of the matter is, water does not flow downhill in a liberal way or in a conservative way. There is a law of gravity. Water seeks its level. And so when we start off the conversation, rather than in partisan terms or in political terms, in facts of the matter, and how these facts of the matter affect other members of the legislature and their constituents, we can find consensus a lot easier than beginning with rhetoric and partisanship and these very broad terms that have almost lost all meaning.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Landry, have you worked with people of opposing views to get things done, and how would you continue that in office?
Well, we've done it again. In 2022, I believe, myself and other members went to the Secretary of State and said, hey, right now we only have 3 minutes in the booth that you can cast a vote. And some in rural communities were using that to advantage to kick people out of the booth and disrupting their voting rights. And so we did a national study. We looked at what the average time in the booth was. And while we were asking for 9, the Secretary of State at the time was adamant that he wasn't going to give us 9. So we had to find that middle ground on what was suitable. So we got it up to 6, which is still not enough, in my opinion. But again, we were able to get something rather than getting nothing. And so that type of work and being able to bring facts and do the studies, and then also just having that relationship with the Secretary of State made it that much easier. And so that collaboration, finding the common ground to get the work done.
All right. Thank you. So this next question will be for all three candidates, Mr. Meyer, Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Landry. All right. Mr. Meyer, what lived experience will shape your approach to crime, education, or poverty in District 67?
The first part, can I hear the question again, please?
What lived experiences will shape your approach to crime, education, or poverty in District 67?
Great question, thank you. So as the Deputy Secretary of Public Safety and Corrections, I got an opportunity to see firsthand the number of people that don't have educational requirements, when they come to prison. Unfortunately, there's a direct correlation between the number of people that drop out of school, and go to prison every year. So if there are 15,000 people that are dropping out, there are 15,000 that are going to prison. Not saying they're the same people, but there's a direct correlation. The numbers are there. So if you raise an education level to the 4th grade level, it helps. 4th grade, you get to the 8th grade level, it helps. You get them to get a GED before coming out of prison, after being incarcerated, then they're less likely to recidivate. I want to make sure that we continue to do that. So we need to educate them firsthand, like I talked about earlier, in the schools, pay teachers fairly, but also those individuals that unfortunately that have to be incarcerated, that while they're in there, we need to rehabilitate people, because 85% of the people that go to prison are coming back out living in the communities among us. And so we need to make sure that we reach out to our brothers and sisters that are in prison, and make sure that we do that well.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Marchbanks, what lived experience will shape your approach to crime, education, or poverty in District 67?
So, transportation, I've ridden the Cats bus in Baton Rouge. I get how hard it is to get around Baton Rouge. And more to that, as far as education goes, I did good to graduate high school. I graduated fine, but I wasn't the best student. And then I went to work. And it wasn't until years later that I was like, I should go back to school. But I didn't have a support system around me. My parents didn't go to school. They didn't know anything about it. I had to figure it out. And it was tough. Luckily, I did have some other people in my life who could walk me through the process and got me through the doors. And I ended up graduating cum laude, and it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself. But we don't have enough in place to help people achieve these educational opportunities in our communities right now, and education is the #1 poverty fighter.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Landry, what lived experience will shape your approach to crime, education, or poverty in District 67?
I think being a husband, being a father, being a son, I think that we all live life, right? We all have family members who have gone through things, and they may come from the same environments. And I think that is just really what I'm about. My mother always told me, if you treat people right and do it for the right reasons, then you'll be successful. And it's not a monetary thing. It's about being enlightened and being able to help people and being a true servant of the word. And so watching her go back to school after she raised us, along with my father, who was a shell worker, then a sheriff's officer before he rose to become superintendent of state police. We know about hard work. We know about hard times, but we know about people, and we just want to be a person of the people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. This next question will be for all three candidates as well. Mr. Meyer, Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Landry. All right. Public service can be thankless. Why are you running, and what will keep you grounded once in office?
Well, let's start off with, I've done a lot of thankless jobs, whether it be boards and commissions, from the Arts and Science Commission, Arts and Science Council, to Arts and Science Museum, to being president of a civic association, to being architectural control committee, and just all of those things. They paid zero, but I wanted to give back to my community, because that's what my mother and father instilled in me. Like Sonny, my dad managed a restaurant, managed Ralph Kaku's. I've been cleaning. I tell people I've been cleaning toilets since I was 13, and so it's been a long time that I've been working. So I know it doesn't pay much, but I'm on the tail end of my career. So that's why it's important to understand that this is not a job that I'm seeking because I have to have an income to be able to do those things. I'm doing this because I want to give back to the community, to the people, to the citizens that I have lived with and worked with all of this time, and I think that I'm the best person to do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Marchbanks, public service can be thankless. Why are you running, and what will keep you grounded once in office?
So I got into this because I don't think politics is responsive to working people anymore. It gets too focused on these silly issues. And I thought it was important for me, having overcome various adversities through my life and had a certain amount of privilege in my life, and seeing all of these forgotten people that are not talked about day to day in our government. So I sought this office because people are forgotten and they're not talked about. Their issues aren't addressed. That's why it was important for me to run. And that is the voice that I will bring to the legislature.
Thank you so much. Mr. Landry, public service can be thankless. Why are you running, and what will keep you grounded once in office?
I think the key is, the good book says that the greatest among us came to serve, not to be served. And so in my capacity, in the jobs that I've had, I've done public service. I've done service of the people. And yes, it can be a thankless job, but it also can be very rewarding at the same time. There are challenges. There are nights I go home and literally look at my children and want to cry because of some of the outcomes that we face, some of the challenges that we face at the Capitol. But I know that if we press on, if we continue to fight the fight that our ancestors laid for us, the job will be done, and we will create a better future for this district, for our children, and for Louisiana.
All right. Thank you
30,
so much.
30-second rebuttal.
Yes.
May I just add that, and start looking at the things that on the list. I'm tired of being last on the good list and first on the bad list. And I think that I'll be able to work hard towards making sure that we try to work on those things to get better. And I think that when I bring people together to do those things, it'll be the best avenue to move forward.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So these are individual questions that we will get to. All right. So Mr. Marchbanks, you're first. Mr. Marchbanks, on your website, you state you are a construction project manager for a minority-owned business. Minority is a term typically used to describe African Americans, but some businesses have used it as a loophole to gain government contracts because women are also classified as a minority. Which of these would your employer fall under?
He's black.
Thank you, Mr. Marchbanks.
Was there another way to answer that?
Not that I know of.
I mean, like we said, minority, it can go for African American or women, so that's why we asked. But thank you for answering the question.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Straightforward.
Mr. Landry, your question is next. Mr. Landry, on your website, it says you are the legislative liaison for the Department of Children and Family Services. In recent years, the department has come under fire with numerous cases of child endangerment. What legislation would you create to ensure children are protected under the state's care?
Well, I think, so being at DCFS was a challenge, right? We saw a lot of families coming in. One of the most important things, I think, is when children are adopted, they're allowed to stay in the home beyond the age of 18. We want to make sure that that continues. And so pieces of legislation would just to ensure that families are protected, families can remain together. We want to ensure that children are not separated from their families if they're not actually being physically harmed or not being in danger. And so, yes, the department has gone through some challenges, but I don't think it's because of the laws that are in place. I think that the mechanism and some of the leadership has had some issues, and there's been some mishaps on the lower levels that have taken place, which the secretary takes the fall for because they're responsible. But I think legislation is important to keep families together to ensure that the children are safe, in a safe environment and thriving.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Yes,
Your
ma'am.
question. On your website, you have touted your 30 years of experience as a public servant, being known in governmental circles. This being your first time seeking elected office, How do you feel you being known in governmental circles will help you connect with the larger community who may not know you?
Well, like I said, those that don't know me from a governmental standpoint know me from a civic standpoint, whether it be ushering in church, whether it be reading in church, whether it be the Arts and Science Museum or various boards and commissions. So I've done those things. Chairing Options Foundation, which dealt with the mentally ill. Actually being in DCFS or being licensed to be foster parents. My wife and I have been foster parents to several kids, and so we enjoyed doing that because it was giving back to the community. So I don't do those things because I want the community to recognize me. I do those things because it's the right thing to do. I do those things because that's how I was raised. That's how my parents raised me. I saw my father do those things in ushering church. I saw my mother do those things extra for Beta Club and cheerleaders and everybody else. And so that's how I've always done. Working church fairs, doing everything that we can to make sure that our community thrived. I will continue to do those things, make sure that our community thrives.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. So those were it for these questions. Now we're going to take our online questions. All right. Okay, so I believe this question is for all three candidates. So Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Landry, Mr. Meyer. What is your historical and current voting record in terms of attendance and perspectives on taxation and proposed amendments?
What is my voting history and
Let me ask this again. What is your historical and current voting record in terms of attendance and perspectives on taxation and proposed amendments?
So I've voted in every election since I was old enough to vote. I show up for the little judge elections. I show up for the bond elections. I vote in everything I can. I'm not aware of any proposed new amendments. Have I missed something?
Or passed? We just.
Oh,
had
I
elections.
opposed all 4 amendments. I voted against all of them.
All right. Is that all for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Mr. Landry, what is your historical and current voting record in terms of attendance and perspectives on taxation and proposed amendments?
So I think that my voting record, I won't say it's perfect because I don't ever want to misrepresent myself, but I would say it's at least 80% or above. I may have missed them. I hope I didn't, but I'm not going to go on the record and say that. But as far as taxation, I think it depends on what it is. I think that we have to actually look at it as a case-by-case basis to see if it benefits our community. Obviously, taxes on the community right now are difficult because of the just recent tax that was raised in the legislature. And in those amendments, I traveled the state educating voters on the 4 amendments as to what they actually meant, what they meant for our communities, and why I felt they should have voted against them. And I think that some of the work that I did along with coalition partners really showed that the anticipated voter turnout was 10%, and we were able to raise it to 21%, and those amendments failed.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Meyer. What is your historical and current voting record in terms of attendance and perspectives on taxation and proposed amendments?
I, like Mr. Marchand, have like to think that I voted in everything that I could have. I won't say that I'm perfect, but I know that I have made a very conscious effort to make sure that I vote in every election. When it comes down to taxes, there's one on the books today. You have to listen to each individual tax proposal that's done. We can't have regressive taxes that burden our citizens in District 67 or throughout the state. So we need to make sure that each one of those tax proposals are dealt with, appropriately. We pay some of the highest sales tax here in Louisiana, and so some of those taxes are regressive. We need to take a look at those things. When it comes down to something like the break tax, that you look at it, we have the #1 park system in the nation, not just in Louisiana. We have the #1 park system in the nation. We need to look at funding programs like that, because when you have clean parks, you have better cities. When you have great downtowns, you have great cities. When you have great transportation, you have great cities. So I think that's one of the things that we need to look at, and also look at the fact that if there's a backlog in the district attorney's office, we need to take a conscious effort of making sure that we figure out whether or not it's the best tax to pass, and people do their research on it. And I think that's what individuals need to do.
Thank you so much. All right. So the next question, same order, Mr. Marchbanks. Okay. All right. With District 67 being placed in East Baton Rouge Parish and the average age being 34, what policies would the candidates have to push the millennial generation forward, and which is the heart of the working class generation currently? Mr. Marchbanks.
Can you reread that for me, please, ma'am?
Yes, I will. With District 67 being placed in East Baton Rouge Parish and the average age being 34, what policies would the candidates have to push the millennial generation forward, which is the heart of the working class generation currently?
Well, so my entire platform speaks to this. I want to make it just a little easier for people who work every day. It is too hard on people to get to work, get paid, have a quality of life, and we can address this through transportation, improving our bus system, improving our roads, improving our education system, beginning with universal pre-K. Where I live, I've heard the gunshots on a random Tuesday morning or a random Sunday morning, Friday night, and definitely every 4th of July and New Year's Eve. And addressing these issues will absolutely help Gen X voters.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. With District 67 being placed in East Baton Rouge Parish and the average age being 34, what policies would the candidates have to push the millennial generation forward, which is the heart of the working class generation currently?
So if we're talking about specifically millennials, what I plan to do is implement legislation that will give us a living wage, at the very least a living wage, right? We know that the minimum wage here is not acceptable. 2 years ago, Senator Royce Duplessis even tried to get creative and give the power to set their own wages to the parishes. That was denied, right? So we would try to go back and work with Senator Duplessis, who we have a personal relationship with. He has endorsed us, and try to get that for our district to ensure that this district and all districts across the state, and the millennials specifically, have that living wage to where they can thrive in the community. They can not just have to be worried about living check to check, and be able to be comfortable and go to work and make a living and be active and participants and be happy about where they're working and where they're living.
All right, thank you. Mr. Meyer.
I have a daughter that lives and got her master's degree in at USC. She lives in Los Angeles. I'd love to have her back home. I'd love to see economic development continue to grow here, so we have not just one IBM, but we have other large corporations coming to Baton Rouge. We're a capital city, and we should have more industry, more businesses here, where our young people, our millennials, don't have to go to Texas or go to Los Angeles or go to other cities. Like I stated earlier, great cities have great transportation, great cities have great downtowns, and those are things that millennials look for, and I will work hard because downtown is in this district, and I will make sure that I work hard to get it better.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Marchbanks, this question is for you. Someone asked if you would clarify what groups you believe have been ignored.
Groups that have been ignored, I think most people who work for a living have been ignored. White, black, Hispanic. The fact that the minimum wage hasn't been raised in decades speaks to that. The fact that the legislature just tried to pass a highly regressive tax package that hurt working people, and they are not. Their needs are not being addressed by the legislature.
Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Meyer, this question is for you. Someone asked, you've made fixing blighted properties a key part of your platform with promises to hold landlords accountable and improve housing conditions. Yet you personally own several rental properties in areas struggling with neglect and disrepair. This includes issues with maintenance and tenant complaints.
Whoa.
So I believe the question
What?
would be,
Because none of my
What are-
properties have any maintenance or tenants complaints. The way you phrased that made it seem like that. So we're talking about the wrong guy, yeah.
oh, well, I guess the question would have been as far as the blighted properties. I think that's what they were trying to get to. It sounded like a statement, sorry. Just got to the bottom of that. But what would you do about blighted property in District 67? Let me just re-ask that.
Okay, so let's make sure we're clear on that. So the fact of the matter is that the city has ordinances in place for grass and appearance, and so you'd have to address those things by making sure that we dealt with that first. It also, working with other groups and organizations that pick up trash, keep Tiger Town beautiful in other areas, making sure that we had some volunteers and organizations that will go out and deal with some of that. If we keep the grass low and keep the blighted property, for lack of a better term, more attractive, then you would keep the criminal element and the negative stuff out of it. But on the record, I don't have any blighted property, and my properties are well kept and insured and ready to go.
All right, well,
If
thank
you're
you
looking for a
letting-
place to live, I got some property for you. Okay?
All right. Well, I got me a nice little place, but thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. And another question. Let me read this first before I don't know. Okay, I believe this question is for you, Mr. Meyer.
I got another one. Okay,
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding.
You often reference your time at the Department of Corrections as proof of your leadership experience, but during your tenure, the department faced ongoing turmoil and saw little measurable improvement. If you aren't able to bring change there, why should voters believe you can make a difference for District 67?
First of all, I wasn't the secretary of the department, but my section that I did supervise had significant change. So overall, reentry program, which I supervised, had successful change, had reduced the recidivism, as well as increased the number of GEDs that were given and people. Also, we had programs, and Tulane University come in and start providing college courses to the women's prison, as well as other programs that dealt with our relationship with Louisiana Community and Technical College Systems. Continued to exist until the funding went by the wayside. So in those positions, I supervised legal, supervised sex offenders and their assessments. So my sections that I was responsible for were very successful. Overall, we did have some problems. We had backlog with people being discharged. We had and being released from prison. We had backlogs in some of the other areas, but I didn't supervise those.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, I believe this question is for all three candidates. I'm going to start with Mr. Landry, Mr. Meyer, Mr. Marchbanks. All right, Mr. Landry, do you support the governor's initiative to bring employees back into state offices, especially considering the ongoing roadway construction and challenges with public transportation?
So I'm gonna be honest with you. That is a difficult situation. I think that we have to actually look at what the governor's true intentions are. I know that he is adamant that state workers need to be at work and in the building and things like that. And I think that's part of the federal push as well. I think that as a society, COVID kind of changed things as to we proved that employees don't need to be in the building in order to be effective. And so I think that you have to look at what it costs again for that, because we also talking about cost savings of not having employees in the office who were not necessarily needed to be in the office. And so I think those things need to be evaluated before we can really have a solid answer on that.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Meyer, do you support the governor's initiative to bring employees back into state offices, especially considering the ongoing roadway construction and challenges with public transportation?
Well, one of the things that I would do as the representative for District 67 is go directly to the governor and tell him that we have to have, if you want to bring everybody back into the office, we need to make sure we have staggered terms. There's no way you're going to be able to widen I-10, which needs to happen, widen Highway 30 to 4 lanes, which I talked about earlier, and look at all the construction projects that are ongoing, without making sure that you have some staggered terms of people coming in and out. So that may be, some people may work early, 6 to 2:30, and then others work from 10 to 6 in the evenings. But you can't have the same amount of flow that we have right now coming in, from 7 in the morning till 9 in the morning, and then leaving out at 4 or 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, and then till 5, and think that you're going to be able to get traffic in and out of downtown Baton Rouge, which is the heart of District 67. So in terms of, in its support, we have those buildings, we own them, we're air conditioning those buildings. So I don't know the reason as to why, but if people have to be back in the office, I always say sometimes out of sight, out of mind. COVID changed that. We started working from home, and there should be some blend between the two of being able to have work at home as well as being in the office.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Marchbanks. Do you support the governor's initiative to bring employees back into state offices, especially considering the ongoing roadway construction and challenges with public transportation?
I do not support it. I know many of these state employees. They're friends of mine. And the work from home situation has allowed them to take care of their kids or take care of their sick mother. They are still responsible for their work. Many of them have things that check their keystrokes on their work computer. So they have the ability to tell they are still working. And with this and a computer, everybody sitting here can work from anywhere that they're at. And sure, there are jobs where you need to be there to do the thing. But with the rate that we pay state workers and the need for high quality people to fill those roles, allowing people to work from home gives us an incentive to work for the state. And we do not want to just throw that incentive out the door and throw away good employees.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
And that was the last online question that we had. All right, and so we're going to move to our closing remarks, starting with Mr. Marchbanks, Mr. Landry, Mr. Meyer. So, Mr. Marchbanks, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds for your closing remarks.
So it has been a privilege to be here tonight. I'm honored to be here with these two good men, two very good and smart men. I feel like District 67 is in good hands no matter who wins. But I will say, I'm running for state representative because my father worked in the oil field. My mother was a waitress. I worked in the oil field. I worked in a restaurant. I have worked hard my whole life, and I see people who work every day not getting the services they need from government. There are things that we can do to make life better, just a little bit better, make it a little bit easier for everyone, from educational opportunity to improving transportation to promoting an entrepreneurial economy, that we can do in this state. We have too many people leaving this state, get a degree from LSU and head over to Houston. And that should not be happening. We have a wonderful culture here, and we are ripe for opportunity. And I will work every day to see to it that life is better for everybody that goes to work in the morning here in Louisiana. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Mr. Landry, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds for your closing remarks.
Yes, again, thank you all for this evening. I think this is great. Anytime I think an educated voter is the best voter, and so to have this, I think is an excellent opportunity. I want to say thank you to the two men sitting beside me for offering themselves up. This is not an easy position to be in by any means, so thank you to them as well. And also, let me apologize to you in the audience. I forgot to mention this on my way in. Normally I would have put on a suit and tie for you guys, but I came in straight from campaigning and didn't have time. Luckily, I had a jacket in the car and threw it on. So my apologies for not necessarily being dressed appropriately as I may have wanted to. But I will say this. I have mentioned my work over 16 years consecutively at the state capitol, the relationships that we built, not with just legislators, but the organizations, the lobbyists. All of these things matter, right? And it's current relationships. It's not things that we used to do or that we want to do. These are things that we are doing currently. I will be there on Monday. You know what I mean? So that is what we're about. Like I said, I'm an attorney. I am about the people. I am a husband. I'm a father. And that means a lot in this position because, like I said, I am a person of the people. And so what I want to be able to say is that, you know, children are important. Children are our focus, because with them, there goes our future. And so I would protect your family just as if it was my own. And that's why I'm running for this position, for not only for my family, but for yours as well. And I ask you to vote number 19 on the ballot. You can go early vote Monday. It starts back up. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Landry. Mr. Meyer, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds for your closing remarks.
Thank you so very much. So first I want to say thank you to everyone that put this on, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. It has been quite educational and great. Thank you to you as a moderator, because I know it's not an easy job to deal with that. Thanks to the gentlemen that are up here. Appreciate your comments and your responses as well. The reason that I'm running, like I said, is because of the years of experience that I have. I know that it's, as you put it, you know, not a thankless task. Sometimes that people don't recognize this job. I will continue to work hard for the members of District 67. I think that my knowledge, my work experience, my legislative experience, my ability working on the federal government for U.S. Senator John Breaux has given me that opportunity, that knowledge base that is broader than my other candidates that are here. I humbly ask for your thoughts, for your prayers, and your support, but most importantly, I ask for your vote. It is right. Early voting started today. We're off tomorrow for Resurrection Day. We're gonna celebrate Easter, and then early voting will continue on Monday and end on the 26th. I respectfully and humbly ask for you to become educated on the issues. Look at our platforms. Look at the difference between experience, and look at the things that can be brought to District 67 to make it better. I look forward to representing you. I would like to continue to have as many forums and debates, because it is true. The more people are knowledgeable about this, the better off you are as voters. We got to change the voter apathy around.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you all for taking the time out to come here and, you know, express your all's thoughts, opinions, and, you know, educating our voters out here in District 67. Thank you all so much. And thank you, audience, for coming out. And thank you, viewers. Here's my camera right here. Thank you, viewers, for, you know, chiming in and listening, and also putting in the questions as well. Thank you all. And that's all for tonight's debate.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.